Hello folks, hope you're having a splendid start to your week. We did a Hobby Nightmares yesterday, and today, normally we do some lore on a Tuesday, but this week it's been a monumentous couple of days with Warhammer going on. 10th edition has been announced, or at least, you know, the proviso that 10th edition will be coming out has been announced, and a few little tidbits of information we can gather going forwards about what kind of things we've asked for that will be in the game, and what kind of things Games Workshop has ignored us on. I think, all in all, it is a more positive bag than a mixed bag, but we'll get into that in a minute. If you like what I do, the subscribe button is down below. If you like what I do, then the Patreon button is also down below, if you want to buy me a pint. And also, Composite Games are here for your hobbying needs. If you need anything from the hobby, whether it be models, whether it be paint sets, whether it be whatever you need, from any sort of game that you need, Composite Games can help you out. If you use the promo code Northern Exile down below, you get 5% off at checkout. Can't say fairer than that. Let's jump in, shall we? So, no sooner had we done that video the other day, where all last week we were talking about, you know, what kind of rules we would want to see in 40k. We did mine first, about what I think 40k should be like in 10th edition, where I think it should go. And I pretty much said that, look, 10th edition should be the building blocks, the starter set that takes us through the next 10 years. That should be the vision of 10th edition. 10th edition should be a decade-long project, where we start off with a wonderfully balanced game, which is complex under the hood, but is easy to pick up. And from there, we go on and we build on top of it with a 10.1 patch, quote-unquote, that is free, that comes out, 10.2, 10.3, you know, as we go through. So instead of having a lot of very confusing FAQs and very confusing White Dwarf rewrites of certain rules, where you have to get several different books to get a certain thing, no. The entire rule set gets a 10.1, 10.2, 10.3, just as we do with video games, and we will do that over the next 10 years. If your base game is good enough. Now, what Games Workshop have pronounced here doesn't necessarily mean that either that thing is coming true or it isn't coming true. They kept their cards very close to their chest. They've shown you some new models, they've shown you some, they've shown you the intention behind, sorry, that was my WhatsApp, my mother. They've shown you the intention behind certain decisions that they've made. By the way, when my WhatsApp goes off, I always have to have it on, because it might be to do with my daughter, so apologies. So yeah, the intentions behind the decisions that they've made are made clear in this article. So they're not going in depth on certain rules, not going in depth on what the whole thing is going to look like, but they are definitely showing you the direction that 10th edition will be going in. And thank God, not only do we have new Terminators, but the Tyranids are getting some love. I can think of a few good friends who will be very, very happy about that. So, let's give it a read, shall we? If you've not read this already. Oh look, it's one of my thumbnails. So, with a new edition of Warhammer 40,000 on the way, it's no surprise that you probably have a few questions. Whilst we can't say too much at the moment, there are some things that we can certainly clear up right now. Excellent. Is this a totally new edition? Well, I'd be worried if it wasn't Games Workshop, let's be fair. You're probably going to be charging £125 for the box set, so, you know. Let's get this out the way from the off. The new 10th edition of Warhammer 40,000 is a complete revision of the game you know and love. Every single element of the game has been revised and rewritten from the ground up for an entirely new and more cohesive experience. Plenty of rules remain the same, but there is not a single one that has not been reassessed and, if necessary, rewritten to work perfectly in the new system. This is genuinely a whole new world of Warhammer. So that could mean a lot of things. What they're sitting on here is how in-depth those changes are. You can rewrite a rule to basically work the same but be better written, you know, and I wouldn't want to pay upwards of £100 for a box set of a new game if that's what it is. If that's what 90% of the rules are, they're just like slightly worded better. What's the point? Now, sorry, I've made myself a hot chocolate and I can't stop drinking it. If they've gone into the rules and they've actually made a stern effort to change a lot of the things that we don't like, or that of hammering the game down and making it harder to pick up, then yes, it would be totally worth it. By the way, I'm not sure I like the way these orcs are painted. Look like they've got an inflatable, one of those novelty inflatable muscle suits on, but you know. Anyway. Will it be quicker and easier to play? Here we go. Out with the big guns already. So, we've listened to your feedback and have taken on board all the suggestions we've received since the launch of 9th edition. One thing that repeatedly came up was the number of different books you currently need to reference whilst playing. Thankfully, the days of flicking through multiple books to find the one rule you need are now over. Datasheet cards for your faction now contain all the information you need to play the game at your fingertips. Now, this is great. This is fantastic for me. This is one of the things that I've said we really need to be doing, and that's making the game easier to play and keeping all of the rules in one place, so you don't need to buy 17 different books to get your fix. Also, I think the more important thing, because if you're buying Warhammer, you're going to be buying the books. We don't want to be nickel and dime, sure, but we're all going to buy the codexes, right? You know, it is what it is. But looking at it the other way, there are so many gotchas in 40k that I've literally played games against people where they've gotten this obscure book out from nowhere that I didn't even know would come out. So, oh yeah, this rule says that I can do, you know, and it's just like, what? If it's not in your codex, for me, it's not fucking legal, mate. It's not legal. I don't give a shit what they've brought out. I don't care what they brought out in White Dwarf. I don't care what they brought out in some campaign book somewhere. I don't care what they brought out in a tournament guidebook. I don't care. If it's not in your codex, it's not legal. Done. Or an FAQ. If it's not in your codex or an FAQ, it's not legal. Not for me. You know what I mean? It really annoys me. It just... Because not every army has access to those extra special rules. So it's not fair. So it's not legal, as far as I'm concerned. Get as butthurt as you like. That's just how I feel, man. That's just how I feel. So yeah, datasheet cards for your faction now contain all the information you need to play the game at your fingertips. That's great. That's great. And I'm sure that's how it will be at the start of the game, because that's how it is at the start of every edition of Warhammer 40,000. This is why we need to be very, very, very careful about the amount of credit we're giving Games Workshop here. Every single issue of Warhammer 40,000 that's ever come out has had datasheet cards or the equivalent of, and all of the rules you need to play a faction are right there in your codex, ready to go, right? Every edition starts that way. The problem is they don't finish that way. More and more and more bloat and more gotcha bullshit rules come out that ruin the game for 90% of people. That's what we need to avoid. So, if this is the spirit, we're approaching 10th in, and it's going to continue throughout 10th, this is a great paragraph. If it's just the start of 10th, then we're just going to end up in exactly the same situation that 9th did, which is a shame. One core design philosophy that has governed all the changes is simplified, not simple. I'm going to say I don't really like that. Mainly because it's a misnomer. It's nonsense. It's corporate speak. It's nonsense. You can almost see them going around the studio like Dr. Evil, you know, doing the hand gesture. Simplified, not simple. You know, it just makes no sense, right? Easy to learn, hard to master is the right way to go. We've said it before, we'll say it again. You know, easy to learn, difficult to master. That's the best game you can ever bring out. Anybody can get into it, but the high level plays are really addictive to watch and to try and reach. Simplified, not simple, reads to me that you've just taken the same rules, reworded them a little bit, and thrown them back into the rulebook. That's how it reads to me. Okay? Maybe you've used less verbose language, maybe you've used more black and white language for certain rules, that's fine. But if your rules aren't very good in the first place, what would be the point? Do you know what I mean? So simplified, not simple is not for me. Sorry, that's not a thing I want to get behind. Anyway, all the rules for your army are now contained exclusively on a single double-page spread. There are also... I just want to cover that first. All the rules for your army are now contained exclusively on a single double-page spread. Now that's exciting. That's exciting. That really does perk my ears up. That, to me, sounds like codexes might be a collector's item going forwards. And that would be amazing. That would be an amazing way to pull the game into. To have, yeah, all of your rules are here for £10. You know, you get a little booklet for your army, and, you know, paperback booklet. Still good quality, but it's a paperback booklet with your rules in it. All your rules are there, and your lore is there in this one booklet. That would be great. That'd be phenomenal. It's like a middle ground between the suggestion that I had, that all rules should be on the Warhammer Plus. So you should have codexes, but also Warhammer Plus, so you can get them on a subscription if you want. But all rules for your army being now contained exclusively on a double-page spread, a single double-page spread, is essentially the same way that the core rules go, right? The core rules are very similar. They can be fit on a double-page spread. So if that's where we're going with the Warhammer, that's great. That is a great way to go. The problem is, if all of your rules are on a single double-page spread, how do you get us to pay for that, Games Workshop? Because you're not going to give us these for free. It's just not going to happen, is it? You're not going to give us any of these rules for free. So are we paying for a double-page spread? Like, you know, there seems to be a middle ground that needs to be sought here between value for the customer and value for the customer's time. Because, let's be honest, if we're paying for a rule book, or we're paying for rules, we want extensive rules. We want the best of both worlds, right? We want extensive rules, but not rules that are going to take up the entire day or weeks and months to go over and actually learn to get into the game properly, you know? So how do Games Workshop find that very thin line? You know, for me, I said, well, bring out the rules on Warhammer Plus and, you know, let the chips fall where they may. And if you want to bring out an extensive rule set for your codexes, you can do that. Whereas what Games Workshop seem to be doing is going down the avenue of, we need to make this more like the actual core game where all of our rules fit on a double-page spread, which is fine, but how do we pay for that? Are you going to charge us a full codex price, but take away all of the rules and put them on a double-page spread? Are our codexes now going to be 20 pages long, but still cost the same amount of money? I'm full of artwork? I don't know. Like, this is a thing, it gets me very excited, but at the same time, I don't know how they're going to monetize this. And they need to monetize it, you know? If they come out with free rules, I mean, that would be, oh my god. If you want 40k to explode in popularity, yeah, making the core rules and the codexes free would be, oh my Jesus, that would be... If you want to dominate the market for years to come, that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. But anyway, we'll see. I can only speculate, so I'm not going to go any further on that one. I can only speculate. It could be anything from the rules are now free, to the rules are on Warhammer Plus, to the codexes are a lot smaller and a lot cheaper, to the codexes are a lot smaller but the same price. You know, that is the full spectrum of really good to really shit, right? It could be anywhere on that spectrum. So I'm not going to comment any more on that, but it does excite me that there is a possibility that we're going to be seeing revised the way that codexes work, that should be great. There are also fewer stratagems. Brilliant. Yeah, we've said that. Far fewer stratagems. Good. We've said that. We need that. The game needs that. The game needs less bloat. It needs less gotcha moments. The fewer stratagems, relics, and special rules to keep track of. Good. Universal special rules are back in the game. It doesn't matter if you are making a dimensional translocation or preparing death from below. It's all deep strike now. So yeah, these are essentially different rules within 40k that did exactly the same thing for different armies. Essentially, so Tyranids had things like death from below, and you know, Space Marines get deep striking. It's the same thing. It is the same thing, and I'm really glad that we don't. Well, they didn't get deep striking. They got something else. But anyway, deep strike should always be the same rule because it's a cool name, and it all does the same thing. So yes, universal special rules are good. Here's a big one. Core stratagems are also much more reactive in the new edition. Oh, danger. Danger. This means there's less waiting around during your opponent's turn and plenty more opportunities to attack and defend, even whilst your opponent is making their moves. You guys know how I feel about this, okay? Your turn is your turn and should be sacrosanct. The turn should be shorter, right? You should and more collaborative, okay? Maybe, but your turn is still your turn. The problem with rules like this is that whilst I totally get what you mean when you say you don't want people standing around doing nothing for ages during a game of Warhammer, I get that, but at the same time, I just think this is open to abuse by Games Workshop, and I'm not sure I trust them to do this, to be honest with you. It's not just open for, the amount of rules bloat that could happen, slowing the game down to an absolute crawl, when one person's just trying to do their turn. Can you imagine? The only thing I can see this benefiting is that guy who you play, who his turn takes an hour and a half, because he has so many rules just being pulled out of his arse from different things that Games Workshop have brought out over the last couple of years in the edition, right? And you're there just to throw some dice. Then in your turn, he just keeps playing. He keeps bringing out these rules and stopping your turn from happening. Can you imagine tournament games like this? Because I can. You're standing there getting more and more frustrated. Like, look, you had your turn. You had an hour and a half, right? I did a few reactions, but nothing like this. And yet he's reacting in every single phase and every single point of the game to slow the game to a crawl. It's like a war of attrition. We could very easily go down the slippery slope of doing that. That's why I would rather have the black and white of your turn is your turn. Your turn is your turn. If we really need to do reactions, I would let the opponent do one for every 5 command points he has left. So we have to trade. So if you have command points left, you know, you have to spend 5 to do a reaction, basically like a big reaction. And reaction should be quite powerful. It should be like, you know, this unit's going to is going to fight twice, or this unit's going to fall back in charge, or this unit's going to, you know, get out of combat and run into cover. This, you know, things that can really change a game. That's what we should be using your reactions on, not, you know, your turn's your turn, yes, but it's also my turn. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. It's my turn. You've had your turn. 40k is a collaborative game, and I think having that structure of your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn works a lot better, because it takes all of the grey area out. As soon as we start introducing grey area into 40k, that's when frustration comes. That's when things start getting annoying. So the your turn, my turn, back and forth works just fine. Maybe have a few reactions in there, like they do in Horus Heresy. That'd be fine. This seems like it's going above and beyond that, though. There are plenty more opportunities to attack and defend, even whilst your opponent is making their moves. Why? Why? Is your opponent not allowed to play the game? Are they? Is it all about you? This encourages the wrong kind of player in 40k. It's all about me. It's all about how I play and what I want to do and where I want to go. You've all got those people in your hobby circles who are kind of not to be trusted with rules like this. You know who I mean. You know who I mean. You've all got one. Friends who cannot be trusted with rules like this. You've all got some. I've got some, right? There are people in my personal life that I will actively avoid playing 40k if the new rule set has loads of ways for them to interfere with my turn. Because I'll never finish a turn ever. They will find ways to nickel and dime the rules to ensure that I never finish my turn. Or I get 2 turns in a game whilst they get 3. There were too many ways to game the system to do that. It's very, very dangerous to go down this road, is what I'm saying. Yes, ideally, I would love to have a back and forth the entire way through the game. You know, alternating activations would be great. And if you're going to do that, just do alternating activations. Just do that. Okay? Because at least you both get little turns that aren't going to be interrupted. It's fine. Do that. Go all the way. Games Workshop, go all the way, or don't do it at all. That's my thing, right? Either have alternating activations or don't do it at all. Just don't do it. Because if you introduce this grey area, people will take advantage and people will get frustrated. Right, moving on. How easy is it to get into the game? We know that not everyone has a full evening to spare playing one game, or has a full 2,000 point army ready to rock, which is why we're introducing the Combat Patrol format. You and your friends can each grab one Combat Patrol box, download a set of rules that balances your chosen force against any other Combat Patrol box, and you'll have enough to play a quick, satisfying game against each other straight away. This is essentially the idea that we had in one of our last videos, is having a smaller set for younger people to come in, a simplified rule set that boils down 80% of the rules into like the core what you need to play 40k. This is a great idea. This is a phenomenal idea. It's a game mode designed to allow all players to get started right with any faction in the game, or for experienced players who want to try a new force without feeling they have to get a huge army. Brilliant stuff, Games Workshop. This is great. This is exactly what we wanted to see from the new edition. More ways to get into the hobby, more ways to get more people into the hobby, and more ways to give your staff some leeway when giving tutorial games. All tutorial games in the store should follow this kind of game, a Combat Patrol. Brilliant stuff, lovely stuff, love it. Good lads. How are Combat Patrols balanced? Combat Patrol is the new mode for Warhammer 40,000. It pits the contents of one Combat Patrol box against another, and it's a fantastic way to begin playing. How have the Warhammer Design Studio managed to balance different boxes against each other? With great ingenuity. This really is a silky smooth way to dip your toes into the 41st millennium. Well, all I can see there, guys, is that you're going to get more models in certain sets than with others. That's literally the only way they could do that in the current rule set. Now, granted, we don't know what the 9th edition rules are going to be for certain factions, but that's the only way they can do it in the current rule set, let's be honest. Is like the Custodes box will be like 5 models, whereas the Orc box will be like 5 times that, maybe. But anyway. And we'll have a lot more to say on this new way to play in the coming articles, including a deeper explanation of how balance is achieved among disparate forces. Okay. Will my collection and codexes be compatible? Your miniatures aren't going anywhere, and we'll have plenty more to say about what codexes will look like early next week. Rest assured, you won't be wanting for options in the new edition. So basically, yes, you're going to need to get new codexes. So codexes doesn't look like they're going anywhere. I will do a video on that when it's out next week. Well, it will be this week, won't it? Whenever it's out this week, I will be doing it. I'll be doing a video on it, so I'll be jumping into that one. Are universal special rules returning? We already know they are. Deep strike, feel no pain, things like that. We already know that. Do vehicle monster profiles still degrade as they take damage? More or less, though the mechanic has been streamlined. Instead of 3 separate profiles, there's a single line on each unit card that still acts like this and explains any penalties incurred when a certain amount of wounds threshold is reached. More on this soon. So, what they're saying there is it's the same rule but worded slightly differently, which was my worry about what they were saying up here, about what did they say? What was the watchword? Simplified, not simple. That's the point. Right, it's the same rule, it's just in a different graph now. What's the point? Never mind. What is the OC stat? OC stands for Combat Patrol. Sorry, for Objective Control. And it's a measure of how good a unit is at holding a contested objective. The confusing days of objectives secured are gone, and we'll have more on how this new rule works very soon too. So good thing for tournament players there. That should be a lot more simple, but I can't comment on it because I don't know how it's going to work. But still, very good idea. When can I get the new box and start playing? There's still a bit of time before the new edition is released into the wild. In the meantime, we'll have plenty of news, blah 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 blah. Sign up to our newsletter, and here's the website. So that is what we have on the new current 10th edition of Warhammer. We can see that they're kind of taking in some of what was said by the community, some of it, right? Other things they've kind of disregarded. One thing I will say, nothing is left off the table in this article, and there are a lot of things that could be paradigm shifting for the hobby moving forwards. Could be. Mainly codexes. The way that codexes work, I think that's going to be the big one. That's going to be the big one where you get to see where Games Workshop are going with Warhammer over the next 10 years. Remember that graph I was talking about before in my head? when I was like, it goes from bad to good, or good to bad, sorry. You know, the best version being all your codex rules are now free. They're never going to do that, but that's the best scenario, right? For the growth of the hobby. All of your codex rules are now free, and they're on a 2-page spread in a booklet. There you go, right? How amazing would that be? Got that. All the way in the middle to, you know, you can still buy your codexes as a collector's edition, but the simplified rules are on this 2-page spread. That would be a nice way of doing it, but still you're going to pay for your codex to get the full rules, which would suck. All the way down to, no, codexes are still in the game, they're just 20 pages long now, instead of being an actual booklet, an actual book. And you're not getting value for money. But hey, we gave you what you wanted, less rules, you know, that kind of a thing. So, we could even be seeing that they could be behind a paywall on a subscription service. So that you get the 2-page spread for free, or you get the 2-page spread with an army box. So if you buy like a starter army box, you get a 2-page spread, and the rest of the rules, or like a more expanded rule set, are on Warhammer Plus. You never know. So I think this could be a huge paradigm shift going forwards, and where Games Workshop wants the hobby to be, you will get to see that when they tell you what the codex is going to look like. More than anything else in the game. The game is the game, but the business is the business. So we'll see. We'll see what they do and how they go about it. I love you all long time. I will speak to you tomorrow for some more Hobby Nightmares. And hopefully on Thursday, we will have more news about these codexes and what the bloody hell's going on. Because that is going to be a huge indicator of where our hobby is going over the next 10 years. Alright. I'm going to keep doing these videos with the more information that we get from Games Workshop. Love you all. Speak to you later. Have a good one. See you later. Bye.